Hi, this is Colie Brice, and you're listening to WSHD in Eastport, Maine. This is part 3 of my interview with legendary guitarist Dick Dale. In this segment of the interview, Dick talks about some stuff he taught Jimi Hendrix how to play, the incredible relationship he has with his loving wife, Lana, and his battles with cancer and health care. It's very interesting insights.
But when I was talking about Jimi, the story of Jimi Hendrix is that starting off as a young kid, like he was, and he heard the sound that I was doing, and that sound came from me trying to replicate Gene Krupa's drums. And at the same time, I had over 30 different species of animals. I had lions, tigers, leopards, jags, hawks, eagles, falcons, everything you could think of on my property. And then what had happened, and I raised them, and from the babies and everything else, so that they could live their whole lives in a freedom of not being contained in a small cage. So when I would come home, a mountain lion would go, wow, like that, or my African lion would go, like that, because they knew it was time to be fed. So here comes Dickie, and I'd go in there, and I had cages that were like 50 feet long, 25 feet across, just for my two lions.
Right.
And that's the way it was. They were in I had a mobile home 60 feet long that my lion would be inside with me during the hot days and stuff like that.
Wow.
And we just laid out and, watch TV together. I'd feed it, I'd hand feed it. But I don't, want people to do things like that because they'll get killed. Because they don't realize that a lion has 1,700 pounds per square inch in their jaw when they close it. They'll go right through steel tins. And they don't realize that when the lion is playing like a cat, when you rub your cat's belly, she grabs you with her claws and bites on you.
Right.
Because she's playing with you. Well, that's what a lion's going to do.
Right.
And the teeth are going to go right through you. And I've had that happen. So you've got to know, what you're doing. And there's no books on how to raise these wild animals. So, but that's what I did. And I had a baby elephant. I had apes, everything. And when the elephant would scream, it was like a pterodactyl scream. So I would imitate these sounds on my guitar, and I still do. And that's what Jimi heard.
Right.
And he was, how do you do that? How do you do that? And then when I came and started surfing in California in 1954, then when I'd be in a wave, the rumble would pick me up in the tube and spit me out. And so I would mimic that. But every time, mainly in my brain, I'm listening to my animals screaming to me, calling me. And so that was coming out of my guitar.
Right.
And that's what I showed Hendrix, what I taught Jimi. Now, once you learn things like that, his career of playing, he just got mixed up just like Keith Moon.
Right.
And, Keith came to me and he said, I'm doing an album, man. I got $80,000 invested in it, and I got John Lennon and Ringo on it. And he goes, I got to have Dick Dale, man. If I don't have Dick Dale, I'm going to scrap the whole thing, man. You're the father. You're the father. And I said, he says, come. And in fact, I'm doing a concert, and he gets up on stage with his bodyguards and Keith Larson, and he grabs my microphone, and he goes, I'm Keith Moon of the Who. And I go, who? He says, of the Who. I go, who? It was like, who's on first?
Yeah.
And
a little bit.
And because I never went to parties with these type of people, I didn't know who anybody was. I threw so many people out of my dressing room that were big movie stars.
Right.
And that were players. And they said, you know who you just threw out of your dressing room? Because he was smoking. I go, get that shit out of my room. Or drinking. So what happened was he wanted me to go to his party. And afterwards, and I said, nah. I said, you want me to do the recording? I'll do the recording. Well, I went and did the recording. And he collapsed in the middle of the recording.
Yeah.
They couldn't go out of it. And then later on, they called me up, and I was in Tahoe performing at Reno, and they told me he died, later on, weeks later.
Oh, my gosh.
Stuff like that. These people, they got so hooked up because they were good in the beginning, but their mental security was so weak that they felt that they had to do what these other people do, who are so screwed up in their lives. Otherwise, they wouldn't let them play with them.
Right.
And that's why I tell people, walk your own path. And then if your path is proper, you'll be proper. And hopefully people that like what you do will follow you. And when people want to buy me a drink, and a lot of people will take that drink because they don't want to offend the person, saying, let me buy you a drink. I don't care about that. What I say is, all right, give me some pineapple juice and ice cubes. And they'll go, what? You don't want any Jack Daniels? I goes, no, I don't put that crap in my body.
Right.
So that's that. So I come straight out and tell them right to their face. If someone's smoking in front of me, I'll take it out of their mouth. or get out of here. And that's the way it is. So, this is what makes people die. They become weak because they're afraid to say, no, I'll play my instrument for you in your bands, but don't expect me to do what you do. That's killing your body.
Right.
They don't have the cojones, whatever you want to call it, to stand up to them and say, I don't do that. And I do. And my wife does. And that's why we don't go to parties. That's why we don't do any of those things.
Well, you even hung out with Elvis a little bit, didn't you?
That's right. That's El used to take me screaming up and down Hollywood Boulevard in a Stutz Bearcat because we were both into the martial arts. Ed Parker trained us.
Right.
And
he had a lot of yes men around him. It must have been a lot different for him hanging out with Dick Dale.
Well, he knew he had a roasted jukebox in his house. He had King of the Surf guitar on it. He loved that. And El was a guy that he was very insecure, and because he just wanted the world to like him. He wanted people to like him. He'd give these lavish gifts to people, and because he didn't really know how, like a monk knows, he didn't know how. Silence is respect. I used to tell I tell these children, when they come to me, I say, when you're in a group, don't speak. Just listen and smile. Nod your head. And don't give opinion. That way, they will fear you. And the reason why they fear you is because they don't know how much you know. Once you open your mouth, they will know how much you don't know, and they'll be on you like a used car salesman. So that's the whole thing. Learn by listening, smiling, and people will respect you, and that's what it's all about. And do things for others, and if they do wrong things from your gifts and deeds, then they had a chance to get a friendship for a lifetime. But when they destroy that, it's gone forever. So that's the decision that they made. They could have had you as a friend forever, but because they screwed you over, they lost you. If you're smart enough, you don't deal with them again.
Right.
And a lot of times you have to, know your enemies, because many times you have to deal with them in business. When I say enemies, I mean people who take from others and don't walk that clean path. But you must deal with them. So just be quiet and deal with them, and make sure you have a very powerful, strong attorney to put in writing what will protect you.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. So you don't have to sit there and go to bed with them to get a job. You just speak with them truthfully, look them in the eye, and say, I'll do this for this. And you have the power to remember. I tell kids, remember, you have the power to say no. And you have the power to say yes. And guess what? Too many people who say yes, they become destroyed. because of that weakness, instead of having the power to be strong and say no. And that's the way I have lived my life, and Lana has lived her life. And, you know, and kids with the drugs, Lana has so many windows in her life like I do. She worked with children, over 170 people, little kids that were on drugs, and she could only save one of them.
It's heartbreaking.
They all learned to lie so perfectly. And if you don't believe what I'm talking about, watch the program Cops.
Yeah.
And her father was a cop. Her stepfather. Her real father was killed on the railroad tracks. She is, her great-grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee, and also raised, her mother had MS also. Lana was taking care of her mother. And Lana also worked in the hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida, as a nurse. She took care of and saved Orson Welles.
Wow.
And he wanted to take her into Hollywood to make her a big work for him and make her a star and everything. No. She said, this here is the thing they want to make a movie out of. When she was 2 years old, taking care of her mom was given an album, and the album had a picture of me and my tiger on the cover. It was called The Tiger's Loose. Her mom's brother gave it to her. Lana was taking care of people all the time, doing things, wanting to help and save people. She was going to be a nun. And she was given the album, and she looked at it, and she loved animals so much. She had herons, all these different birds that would come into her backyard, and she'd take care of them. And she looked at my tiger's eyes, because we were both looking at the people who's holding the album, our eyes. And she says, oh, look at the tiger's eyes. It's so beautiful, Mommy. And then she looked at my eyes. And she was born with a gift. And people who listen to this story, they know what you call a medium is. And if you've ever heard of a medium, have you ever heard of a medium?
Yeah, like a clairvoyant or psychic.
Yes. Lana was born a sensitive. She is 10 times more powerful than a medium. I never believed in any of that stuff, ever, unless they came down and shook my hand. But I won't even get into it because they'll put me in the loony farm. But I will say this: you people listening, your soul does not die when you die, because I have found it out with my parents. And so Lana, she looked at the album and she said, Mommy, look at his eyes. She didn't know who Dick Dale was at 2. And she said, one day I'm going to be with him the rest of my life.
At 2.
At 2. At 3 years old, she started writing to people like Joan Fontaine and Doris Day, who writes to her as we speak.
Wow.
Just got a letter last week from Doris. She calls her Dodo.
Huh.
And Lana has got, the stuff that she has done, you wouldn't believe it. And she's done over 100 plays. She's sang with she knew the Andrews Sisters. Doris Day just loved her with the way she could sing. And she learned to sing like Doris Day. She learned to tap dance. She was trained by the woman who trained the Rockettes and stuff like that. She goes on and on. And she loves all the same things that I do. But she has a special gift, and she won't talk about it at all. But people come to her, and you won't believe what happens. So she told her mother that. As she went on through her life, she never contacted me because I had been married. It was a horrific marriage. And then she respected that. She always told people, I'm saving myself for Dick Dale. Orson Welles knew it. Johnny Cash used to put Lana on his lap, and they had her sing on the stage with him. In fact, Johnny Cash and his wife wanted to adopt her because the mother, he felt, couldn't take care of her good because she had MS.
Right.
She has a tremendous history. And what happened was she would tell Johnny, she said, I'm saving myself for Dick Dale. And she had never contacted me. But she would pray to her angel, Bernadette. And her angel told her, I'm dying, when I was dying. And that was about 14 years ago.
Wow.
And when I was 20, I had cancer, rectal cancer. I had 3 months to live, and I beat that. And then and now it came back. I've had it in my body for years. And there's a different story. What you eat causes your cancer to rejuvenate itself, because we all have cancer in our body. But it minds its own business until we eat things like sugar, and that becomes like fertilizer.
Right.
And so anyway, that's a whole other story. But people can look up cancer. Cancer cannot live on oxygen and liquid oxygen, and it kills it. So look it up in the computer, folks. Cancer and oxygen. Look up hydrogen peroxide, food grade, 35%. The Egyptians have been using for 100 years. It kills the cancer cells and many other different entities in your body. So what we do is we research all of this from all over the world. And doctors know about it, but they're not allowed to talk about it. But anyway, with Lana, all of a sudden her angel told her that I was dying, and she told her mother, and her mother said, contact him. So she contacted me through the email, and I was in Europe in pain that you would never, never believe. They had to carry me out of a car, carry me on a stage, put me in a chair while I played the guitar. The pain was beyond belief.
Yet you played.
And so anyway, we ended up talking on the email, and then we ended up talking on a phone. And for 19 months, she was talking to me 10 hours a day to keep me going while I was in Europe.
Wow.
And put me to bed, because she was the nurse then. And then when I got home, and then her angel said, he is dying. So she said, I can't let you die. I've loved you since I was 2. And she was told to go and take $1 and go to the scratch off, which she's never done in her life. She went to the scratch off and won over $500 the first time in her life. And that was the money she used. She said to me, I can't let you die. And she got on a plane and came to me. And we've been together ever since. And she saved my life. I was on a gurney for 12 hours when I collapsed in a parking lot. And they had 5 doctors trying to figure out why, looking at the screen. And Lana was with me, and she walked in and said, may I see your screen? And they were reluctant, but she said she was a nurse and worked at the largest veterans hospital in the United States in Florida, St. Petersburg, where she was born. And her stepdad was a police officer. And she looked at the screen and said, gentlemen, he has 3 fistulas. 1, 2, 3. Do you see them? And they said, oh, my God, we're going to lose him. We're going to lose him. Get the helicopter. Get him into Palm Springs. She says, no, I'm going to take him. She took me, and I'm still here because of all of this. And I can go on, which I won't, of all the different things that she has done to save my life. Each time mistakes were made. She even went up to a doctor and said, do you realize the pills that you're giving him for his diabetes causes pancreatic cancer? And they said, well, at his age, we're not worried about that. We just want to give him a great big burst. So we stopped taking those pills. So anyway, this is what she has been in my life, and they want to make a movie out of it. We had about 4 different companies want to make a movie out of our particular love story. And yet Lana deals with her pain with MS and fibromyalgia and a Herschel tumor in her thyroid. So these are all death sentences. But yet she works feverishly 24 hours a day. She makes me say, she goes, lie down, I don't want you to book no more. I'm going to book all the things, because the reason why, too, we're performing is I have to raise $3,000 every single month just to pay for the attachment that I have on my stomach. I have to wear a bag. Mm-hmm. And the insurance, because of the government, won't allow the insurances to pay for it completely. And these poor people, because it's called a stoma, your intestine comes out of your stomach, and then you have an attachment, and that's how your fecal matter is taken care of. And yet my kidneys have stopped, and I'm the next step going into the machine, which I am not going to do. And we deal with it the way we deal with it, and I'm still here. And we've been dealing with it for over 13 years. And so now, these poor people that are only getting money from their Social Security, whatever, they're laying in bed with infections because they cannot change their attachments every day like they're supposed to when the hospitals say, do it once a week. No, it's because they can't afford to. So God bless them all. That's what we're doing. She gets 2,000 email a week from these people with these deadly diseases, and they cannot attend to them properly because the insurance companies won't pay for it. So, and I got Blue Cross, and I got a backup, I got all that, but still they don't pay for the complete of the needles that I have to take for insulin and also my attachment. So while we're on tour, we're doing two things. Not only helping people with this diseases, they come to me when I sign. I signed for 5.5 hours, like before when I did the concert at Viva Las Vegas, the 30,000 people. I was signing at the merch table 5.5 hours. We just played with Kid Rock in Florida for 30,000 people.
Wow.
And it went on like that. And so what happens is, and when I go to Europe, we play to 490,000 people. It's like Woodstock in Berlin. And so, but yet we play to the clubs because the clubs are local and their families come, and there are places where dinner houses are, they bring their kids, and it's like a family. And I like that because I'm closer to them, because they can come right to the stage. And then I can see them when we're through performing, because we'll sit there and sign and talk war stories about our diseases. And I teach them to swear at it, to laugh at it, to don't lay in a bed and say, oh, woe is me, you know. You're going to die anyway, so the point lies is you better make the best of what you're doing before you die.
Right.
So you know, if everything stops with me, put me in a wheelchair to the end of the pier so I can watch the sunset. And that's just the way it is. When I die, it's not going to be in some rocking chair with a big beer gut. It's going to be in one big explosion of body parts on stage. And one critic said the way he plays, he's going to take half the audience with him.
Well, hopefully not August 9th.
so you know, that's the whole thing. You know, you got to have this positive attitude, no matter what. You know, when something is wrong with you, there is always somebody else that has a lot more wrong with them. I tell them, remember that.
There's always a more positive perspective.
That's right. I mean, I had the blues because I had no shoes, till upon the street I met a man who had no feet. Think about that.
I will. Dick, thank you so much for your time. Our listeners are going to be so grateful to hear this, and